Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're building the ultimate study guide to ensure you completely ace your biology final exam on animal nutrition. If you've been looking for a straightforward, distraction-free way to master the core biological processes of how animals turn food into fuel, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to break down everything, from the simplest single-celled organisms all the way up to complex mammals, giving you the exact vocabulary and concepts you need to succeed.
Think of this as your exam syllabus. We're going to cover 1. Diets and nutrition basics, 2. How amoebas get nutrition, 3. Human digestion focusing on the mouth, 4. Human digestion in the gut, and 5. Digestion in ruminant animals.
All right, Section 1, Diets and Nutrition Basics, the Universal Rulebook.
You probably already know your herbivores, carnivores, and omnivores, right? But listen, exam questions absolutely love testing you on the subtle difference between scavengers and decomposers. Scavengers, like vultures and hyenas, are basically nature's cleanup crew. They feed directly on dead and decaying animal matter. But decomposers? These are tiny microorganisms like bacteria and fungi. They don't just eat the organic matter, they actively break it down into much simpler compounds, effectively returning those nutrients to the soil to keep it fertile. Make sure you keep that distinction crystal clear in your notes.
Okay, this right here, this is our ultimate cheat code for the test. Every single organism we're covering today, no matter its size or complexity, follows these exact same 5 steps of nutrition. First is ingestion, taking the food in. Second is digestion, breaking it down into simpler substances. Third is absorption, where those simple substances are sucked up by the blood or cells. Fourth is assimilation, actually using those nutrients for growth and energy. And finally, egestion, getting rid of the undigested waste. If you memorize this exact sequence, you basically understand the backbone of this entire biological unit.
Moving right along to Section 2, How Amoebas Get Nutrition, our single-celled eaters.
Massive exam alert right here. Both humans and amoebas use what's called holozoic nutrition. That is a super high-yield vocab term. It essentially means taking in solid food, like actually engulfing a whole food particle or part of a plant or animal, rather than just absorbing dissolved stuff from the surrounding environment.
So the crucial point here is remembering the term pseudopodia. Lock that word in. It literally translates from Greek to false feet. Since the amoeba is just a single, free-living cell floating around in water, it obviously doesn't have a mouth. Instead, it pushes its cellular body out into these finger-like projections to move around and to physically trap and enclose its microscopic meal.
And this entire journey is a brilliant showcase of that 5-step cycle we talked about earlier. It kicks off with ingestion, those false feet stretching out and circling the food, creating a food vacuole right inside the body. Then, digestive juices are pumped directly into that vacuole to break the food down. After that, absorption and assimilation spread those vital nutrients all throughout the single cell. And finally, egestion happens when a new vacuole forms, travels to the cell boundary, and literally just pushes the waste right back out. It's incredibly elegant and honestly highly testable.
All right, scaling up. Section 3, Human Digestion, starting right at the mouth.
This breakdown is pure exam prep gold. It cleanly summarizes the names, counts, and mechanical functions of your permanent teeth. A healthy adult has 32 teeth, basically split into 4 highly specialized tools. You've got 8 incisors right up front for cutting and biting. Next to them are 4 sharp canines for tearing. And further back, you have 12 premolars and 8 large molars. Both of those have flat surfaces perfectly designed for crushing and grinding your food down into much smaller pieces so you can safely swallow it.
But it's not just mechanical grinding going on in there. While your teeth are busy chomping away, your salivary glands are actually pumping out a crazy 2 liters of watery saliva every single day. Think about that. That's a large soda bottle's worth. And it's not just water. This saliva is loaded with an enzyme called amylase. This is critical because amylase actually kickstarts the chemical digestion of carbohydrates right there in your mouth, way before the food gets anywhere near your stomach.
So you chew your food, mix it with that saliva, and your tongue shapes it into a slimy little ball called a bolus. As you swallow, a flap called the epiglottis protects your lungs, and that bolus heads down the esophagus. But it doesn't just fall down by gravity like a rock in a well. It moves via peristaltic movement. It's a highly coordinated wave-like flexing and relaxing of muscles. Seriously, highlight the word peristaltic in your notes for test day, because it perfectly explains how food is forcibly pushed into the stomach.
Section 4, Human Digestion,
going deeper into the gut.
The entire digestive tract is basically one continuous massive assembly line. The food travels from the esophagus, drops into the stomach, and then flows seamlessly right into the insanely coiled, 6-meter-long small intestine, before finally hitting the wider, large intestine. Every single organ acts in perfect coordination. It only takes about 6 or 7 seconds for a swallowed bite to reach your J-shaped stomach, but once it arrives, it's going to stay there for up to 3 hours. During that time, your stomach physically churns the food while absolutely blasting it with potent hydrochloric acid and digestive juices just to break down the proteins. The end result of this hours-long mixing bowl session is an acidic, semi-digested paste known as chyme.
Here's a wild anecdote for your notes. Back in 1822, a doctor named William Beaumont actually proved that digestion was a chemical process, not just a mechanical one. How? He had a patient who survived a musket hole wound that literally left a permanent window right into his stomach. Crazy, right? Anyway, as that acidic chyme finally leaves the stomach, it meets the real chemical heavyweights: the massive liver, which secretes bile to break up fats, and the pancreas, which pumps out juices to finish off the carbs and proteins.
Let's bring it back to those 5 universal steps for a second. Once digestion finishes up in the small intestine, tiny finger-like projections called villi suck those resulting nutrients right into the bloodstream. And that leads us directly to the assimilation step. This is where the magic happens. Your body actually takes those nutrients and puts them to work, burning glucose for instant energy, storing fatty acids, and using amino acids to literally build new cells and repair your muscles.
And finally, Section 5, Digestion in Ruminant Animals. So how does a cow do it? It's a completely different nutritional strategy. Animals like cows, buffaloes, and sheep are what we call ruminants. They graze fast, quickly swallowing grass without much chewing at all so they can just gather food quickly. Then later, when they're resting somewhere safe, they actually bring that swallowed food back up to their mouth, at this point it's called cud, and they thoroughly re-chew it. This whole fascinating sort of looping routine is called rumination.
You absolutely have to memorize the 4 chambers of a ruminant's stomach. It is practically guaranteed to be on your exam, and you need them in order. First is the rumen. It's this massive chamber, completely packed with millions of bacteria that break down tough plant cellulose to form the cud. Second is the reticulum, which acts like a giant filter, separating solids and liquids. Third is the omosome, responsible for absorbing the excess water. And finally, the abomosome. Pay close attention to this. The abomosome is basically the cow's version of a human stomach, utilizing hydrochloric acid and enzymes to finish the digestion process.
Now, while ruminants are working incredibly hard with 4 stomachs and constant cud chewing just to process tough grass, here is a super fun fact from the textbook to give your brain a quick breather. Sloths take almost an entire month just to completely digest a single meal. Their metabolism is uniquely built for an absolute slow-motion lifestyle.
Okay, to conclude our ultimate study guide, let's do a quick final exam simulation right now to see if this stuck. Based on the 4 ruminant stomach chambers we literally just covered. True or false, the omosome is called the true stomach in cows. Think about it. Does that title really belong to the water-absorbing omosome, or does it actually belong to the acid-producing abomosome? Use that as your final review prompt tonight, and you are going to absolutely crush your biology exam. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.